Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, thanks for coming, Jerry. I'm sure we all appreciate it. I always promised myself that if I ever got to meet you, I'd ask you this question. And it's about Nomar Garciapara and Manny Ramirez. Could you just comment on the way each of them left the Red Sox?
Yeah, sure. That one thing where I said I could maybe tell you part of the truth. I'll go back on Nomar a little bit. I knew Nomar before I was the manager here in Boston. There was a thing called the Arizona Fall League where they sent all the young kids. And Nomar actually played for me out there. So it was a long time ago. He was a young kid. He was one of the nicest kids I've ever been around. When I got the job here, I think he was burned out on Boston. You can see how that can happen sometimes. It was just too much. It doesn't mean he's not a good person. It was just time for him to move on. And so that's what happened. It was better for our team, and it was better for him. I didn't realize at the time when Theo, that's my first year here, and Theo was like, hey, if we trade this guy, he was like, they're going to kill me. And I was like, I'll be right behind you. I didn't realize what a big deal it was. And it is. And I understand it now that I've lived here. It actually makes my job harder that I live here. I was so naive my first year. I kind of let it all go right over my head. I didn't even know what the heck they were saying about me half the time. But he was a good kid. It was just time to move on. With Manny, you don't have enough time for me to tell you. Tell you a quick Manny story. In the World Series, we were playing the Cardinals in 04. I don't know if you remember this, but he was leading off the 8th inning of Game 4. We were winning that game, and we were up 3-0 in the series. And Manny was starting to lead off the inning. Nothing had happened, and you could see the catchers, Molina. They were kind of going back and forth like they were arguing a little bit. I think they have it on TV because people said they've seen it. And the umpire was Chuck Merriweather, and he's motioning me out. So I come out in the field and think, my goodness, what happened? They didn't even throw a pitch yet. And Chuck said, Tito, they're arguing in Spanish. And he goes, I don't speak Spanish. I go, I don't either. So Manny kind of backed up and I said, Manny, well, what's the problem, kid? He goes, they're accusing me of stealing their signs. They were trying to do is just do something to get under our, get us irritated or something. And I looked at the umpire and the catcher, I said, he doesn't even know our side. Unfortunately, that's a really true story. There's no literary license there at all. I think the best way to answer about Manny is certainly quirky. That's probably an understatement. But with players, their productivity has to outweigh their pain in the neckness. I think you understand what I mean. I think it had become time to move on. When it got to the point when his teammates weren't quite as, having his back, and it was getting in the way of us winning, it's time to move on. Because he was a heck of a hitter. But there were some quirks.
Mr. Fancona?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where was...
Thank you for coming today. I have a question. When we see the game, it appears to be very easy. Matter of fact, when pitching goes poorly, I say, I will put my resume together and I will send it to you. But what goes behind the scenes, in your opinion, what makes a strong, solid player, and what are the components of a solid performance?
What's interesting, when you say the game looks easy, and I have to remind my bosses that sometimes, the further you get away from the field, because these guys are so good, the game looks slow, it looks easy, they make most of the plays. When you get down on the field level or in the dugout, and you can hear these guys grunting, or you hear when a guy gets hit in the ribs with a fastball, and you can hear it, it's not so easy. The farther away you get, the field looks perfect, there's no bad bounces, and I think people react that way sometimes. I think you'd be shocked at how hard these guys work. Everybody talks about their salaries and the amount of money they make and the lifestyle they live. They work so hard. They're there all day, every day. And I think it shocks the young guys that come to Boston. They think, I've arrived. I made it to the Red Sox. Then they see how hard we work, and it's really hard for them to understand. Somebody has their hand up. Yes, sir.
How do you motivate someone
in a slump? It's easy. I spent 10 years in a slump. Actually, sometimes I tell them that. have somebody will come up to me and say, God, man, it's been 4 days, I haven't had a hit. I said, spend your whole career doing that. You know what we try to do? We try so hard to be consistent. Players can smell it when you're not consistent. It's so easy to be the manager when we're winning. It's so easy to pat them on the back. When they need me is when things are going bad. Remember last April when David Ortiz was really struggling? That was hard. They're still getting around it. He felt betrayed by me. Like we pitch hit for him a few times. We didn't play him a few times. He was like, yeah, I've been here 10 years. I've been the best player. I've been the face of the organization, and you're bailing on me. And then from the other side, I had people telling me, hey, you're staying with him too long. So it was kind of a dilemma. And it was hard. And it actually, we kind of had to fight our way through it for a while. But what I thought was important was not that we didn't have a problem, but we took the problem and where we went from there. And we actually, I think, grew to be closer, which I think is ultimately really important. But it was tough. It was really hard. Yes, sir.
Yeah, being well known as a manager with success, they call sometimes the passing party a player manager. Now,
does that make it difficult for you to discipline your players?
I don't look forward to it. I don't know who would. You know, I laugh when I hear what's a player's manager. I hope what that means is that we ask more of our players than anybody. At the same time, we care more about them than anybody. That's the way I would define it. It doesn't mean we let them go. We will sacrifice our principles. I think I actually enjoy the players. You get pretty close to them. It makes some of our decisions kind of tough. We don't ever change our decisions because of it. But sure, some of them are really tough. But we don't ever change that. And the players are good. And there's a line that they don't cross. But I don't know if I'd want to be. The guys are fun. They're young. They're fun. They have enthusiasm. It's kind of, I enjoy being around them. And I think, again, you know, I get really aggravated when I hear athletes say it's just a job. I hate that. So I think was Randy Moss said that with the Patriots. I hated that. I know we make our living doing that. There is no way this is just a job. I would do this job for a lot less money. I would never tell Theo that. But this is what we do. 99% of the guys playing this game love it. Sure, there's a guy or two, they want the money, they're not that passionate. Most of the guys, don't let it kid you, when they play bad, it kills them, and they care. Way more than I think they ever let on.
We have time for 2 more questions for Terry.
I think there's a woman in the back of that, man.
Mr. Francona, who inspired you as a manager, leader, coach that you've taken some recognition from?
Good question.
Yeah.
Because I was a journeyman player, which is a really nice way of saying I was mediocre. I played on 6 teams. I played for 17 different managers. That's a lot of different managers, a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different ways of playing the game. And in so many instances, I saw things that I really respected. And on the flip side, I remember thinking, boy, I don't know if I would do that. There were some managers that made me feel so important. And like I was such an important part of the team, even when I didn't play. And I really respected that. So I kept my eyes open, and I watched the way everybody did things. But ultimately, I really felt like you got to be true to yourself. Players aren't the smartest guys in the world, but they can pick up on stuff like that in the quickest way. If you're not true to yourself, they'll see right through it, and then you got no chance. I'm not the type of person, I can't walk into a room and intimidate the whole room. I've played for guys who can do that. You walk in and it's like, you don't breathe. You hear a pin drop. That's not the way I am. I probably make fun of myself sometimes, and try to be humorous. We certainly try to do things correctly, but you have to be the way you are. Yes, sir.
Can you explain the details and complexities of salary arbitration?
What do you?
You must be from New York.
It's when people have a contract.
And I imagine that a long season that you have, what kind of things do you do to prevent things from getting stale?
That's a great question. we try really hard. Remember I talked earlier about trying to have the, around the ballpark, the atmosphere where guys want to do the right thing? We do a lot of team building things where I hope the guys don't even realize we're doing it. In spring training, we do a lot of fun stuff with the NCAA basketball tournament. We make the young kids get up in the morning and talk about who won a game or who's winning our brackets. Somebody different every day. As we get into August, we have a fantasy football draft. It's not because I could care less in August who is on my fantasy football team, but it gives us something to do together. Last year in Baltimore, we lost a killer game. We were struggling to hang on, and we lost a tough one. And after the game, we sat in the clubhouse for about 3 hours. We had beer, we ordered pizza, and we did this thing together. And I remember sitting there thinking, you know what, good timing. Everybody was in there. They didn't know how to act quite at first. They were disappointed. As the night went on, it loosened up a little bit. We came out the next night and beat the heck out of them. I think that had something to do with it. So I believe in a lot of those things. We just try not to beat it down their throat. I think we try to let our guys think they're making the decisions. And when hopefully we are, I think if you can get players to feel like they're running the show when they're really not, you're kind of ahead of the game. Try to be smarter than them.
Well, thank you so much. Give it a round of applause.
Thanks for that.